got here, this is basically a stock out of the box 2022 S-Works Levo. Brand new bike, total new build. The only thing I've changed on here is brakes and bars, personal preference, but the rest of this bike is completely stock, which is pretty amazing. So let's go out here. We got this trail and we're gonna test this thing out. So now before we get started, we got a trail here that's pretty mellow. There's a little bit rocky, and but for the most part, it's like a flat switchback kind of mellow trail. Now, as I was saying on the back here, this bike has two adjustments on the rear end. On the front, there's three different fork angles, but back here you can have the rear end be in a high or low setting. So right now this bike's in the high setting. This trail is pretty mellow and easy, so we're gonna keep it in the high. I think it will work best for this trail. And the front is I'm just in the standard straight position. But this is the new TCU unit, which is this computer on the front, with the new 2022 turbo bikes have this. Very cool unit. We'll go over it later, but there's three settings right here. There's all kinds of things. You can go through different screens. It tells your ride time, what time it is, and even tells elevation. So we got altitude, altitude gain, altitude descent. Super cool feature. We're gonna be using that a lot on this trail. Right now we're really high up, so what's it say? 5,000 feet. That's pretty crazy. We're up on this mesa. So we'll see what it is when we get to the bottom, but anyways, that's a cool feature. Oh, yeah. So now we got this on, let's give it a test. All right, so this bike's got new geometry this year. It's greatly changed. The head tube angle is more slack, rear end shorter, and it's all adjustable. Head tube angle is adjustable, and the rear end height is adjustable. So there's two settings here on the rear end. There's a high and a low, which basically raises and lowers the BB height on this bike. A high, I had it set yesterday, sort of some flat, flowy trails, and then today we moved it down to the low because these trails are gonna be a little bit more aggressive and downhill trails, which it just makes the bike a little bit more aggressive, lowers the rear end. All right, so for the new Levo here, this is the S-Works model. If you guys have been following my bikes over the years, you've noticed I've done a few key things to this bike over the past few years. Number one, the biggest thing is I'm always recommending putting this right here, the Float X2 rear shock on the back. Huge difference. And they did that this year. They put this shock on this bike stock in the S-Works model. The other thing is recently I've put the 38 on the front and bumped it up to 160 millimeters of travel, as opposed to this bike used to come in 150. I made it 160. So again, for this 22 model, the S-Works comes with a 38 at 160 on the front. Very cool. On my Kenevo and some other bikes in the past, you guys may have seen, I did the mullet setup. I put a smaller wheel in the back and a bigger wheel in the front. Again, this is the way this bike comes out of the box. Now, here's an interesting thing. I recently put the SRAM axis rear derailleur with the 12-speed cassette on the back. I was a huge advocate for that, and I was always pushing the electronic axis stuff, and here we go. This bike out of the box, it comes with that stuff on it. So overall, the way this bike comes is pretty much how I've been building them over the years, which is a very cool thing. It's pretty amazing to be able to take this thing out of the box, and it's really ready to go. It's perfect. You'll notice the new bikes have this new TCU unit on the front, which is basically a computer that controls everything. Controller is basically the same. It's got an F1 and 2 button, which help you cycle through this menu. The screen is a little bit different. It's got a nice colorful LCD screen that gives you a lot of info. Tells you your miles per hour, so when you're going, that will jump up, tell you how fast you're going. It's got the time, battery percentage, and it's got these different menus. So as a brief overview, you can run through it, and tells you your riding time, your distance, altitude gain, which is the altitude stuff is pretty cool because it can tells you what elevation you're at, altitude gain on your ride, altitude descent, and all these things are customizable in the app. That's a whole nother thing where you can go into mission control and customize those. It tells you your ride time, your distance. So it's very cool, and you can customize all these screens, screen by screen, in mission control. So it's a pretty cool thing. And then if you go, Eco's blue, Trail is green, and Turbo is a yellow. So that actually makes it pretty cool when you're coming down the trail, and sometimes you don't want to look down and see what power level you're at. It's great. You can just look down and see a color, you're like, oh, it's green, that means I'm in trail. Or you can look down and just see a little bit of yellow, and that means I'm in turbo. So that's actually a pretty cool thing for it. And the speedometer is nice and big, and you can see it. So new LCD screen on the TCU here. Very cool new feature for this new bike.